Shalom and good morning, and welcome to Wow equals of wisdom number 7. Mean what you say. We all need to ask ourselves that question. We say a lot of things, throughout the course of each day, but do we really mean what we say? When you ask somebody, how are you doing? Do you really doing, or are you just saying it? Because sometimes when you ask somebody how they're doing and they begin to tell you how they're really doing, do you take the time out to really listen to what they're saying? Do you have an ear of compassion because you really wanted to know how that person was doing? We say that all the time. How you doing? Okay. But do we really want to know? Do we really want to know how they're doing? Maybe the better greeting should be, shalom or good morning or good evening or good afternoon. Because maybe you really don't want to know how they're doing. When you say, I'll call you back, do you really mean that you're going to call that person back? Or are you just saying that? Okay? These things are important because that person may really be waiting for you to call them back, to return that phone call. Do you really mean what you say? When you say, I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock, are you really going to be there at 9 o'clock? Can that person depend on you to be on time? Or are you just saying it? See, as people of the Most High Yah, we have to mean what we say. We really do. Our intentions must line up with our words and with our actions. We can't look at what we say, what our intent was, and what we actually do as three separate things. They all should coincide with one another. And unfortunately, more often than not, what we are saying, what our intent is, and what we're actually doing are separate, and they have no unity at all. Good morning, Sister Diamond. Shalom. And so that's something that we really need to think about as we go throughout our day today. Are our actions lining up with what we are saying? And do we really mean what we say? Can we be depended upon to, do what we're saying we're going to do out of our mouths? Do we have the set apart integrity and character in our words, in our intent, and in our actions? Do they all line up? Do they all coincide with one another? And if you're late all the time to every place that you're supposed to be, to every appointment, and you're telling people you're going to be there at a certain time, but you're always late, then you don't mean what you say. You don't mean what you say. It just is what it is. You don't mean what you say. If you tell somebody you're going to call them back and you never call them back, okay, then you don't mean what you say. If you say that you're going to get, that project done at work, but by this day and this particular time, but you never get your projects done on time, you never get your assignments done on time, then you don't mean what you say. If you tell your wife that you're going to do something and you don't ever do it, then you don't mean what you say. If you are a wife and you tell your husband, or you tell your children, or parents, if you tell your children that you're going to do something and you don't do it, then you don't mean what you say. And that's a lesson that you're teaching to your children, that you don't mean what you say. And you know what? That is a big lesson that I had to learn, because of the fact that I had to learn very, very quickly with my sons that not to sit down there and promise them things, because I didn't want them to take me as a person that didn't mean what they said. I didn't want to come across as a liar to them. So if there were times, if there was things that I knew that I wanted to, do with them or do for them, but I didn't know whether I was going to have the time or the resources to get it, I just wouldn't tell them that I was going to do it. Okay? Just in case I wasn't able to get it done. I was better off not even saying to them that I was going to do something with them or for them and not get it done. Okay? I was very, very cognizant of the example that I was leaving for them. Because if you tell a child that you're going to do this, they're expecting you to do this or that. They don't understand all of the other things that may go on in your life that causes you to be able to, that causes you to not be able to fulfill what you've said. And so that's very, very important as parents, that if you say that you're going to do something for your children or with your children, or give something to them, you better make sure that you are going to be able to fulfill what you have said out of your mouth. This is very, very important. If you're married, wives to husbands, husbands to wives, that communication with one another. If you say you're going to do something, mean it, back it up by fulfilling what you said you were going to do. That's integrity. That's when you're building that character. That's when you're building that trust in your relationships. It's very, very important with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers, with your neighbors. If you don't ever, do what you say you're going to do, if you don't mean what you say, if you're not sincere in your intentions, with your words and with your actions, in your deeds, people are going to start taking you as a person that cannot be trusted, that cannot be depended upon. And then they're going to start looking elsewhere, for help, for guidance, for somebody to partner with. This is also very, very important in business. If you're trying to build a business or what have you, and you are never on time, you don't meet your deadlines and things of that nature, and you're always constantly breaking contracts with people, you don't mean what you say. And a long time ago, a handshake meant the deal was done. Your word was your bond. And that's how people did deals back in the day. They literally shook each other's hands. And their word was their bond. Their word was their contract. Their word was that agreement. And so now, because people just lie to each other, people are so busy lying all the time. Okay? People can't just shake hands on stuff anymore. You got to have written contracts. And people break them too, because people are so used to not meaning what they say. And so we, as people of the Most High Yah, we should not be living that way. We need to examine ourselves in all areas of our life. And if we've been living that way, where we have been saying things out of our mouths that we really don't mean, that we have no intention of doing or fulfilling, we need to repent. We need to turn away from that type of mentality. And we need to start really, Shalom, Sister Kimia. We really need to start making sure that our intentions, our words, and our deeds, our actions start lining up with one another and start meaning what we say. Okay? If you really don't have the time to listen to what somebody has to say, or You really are not in the mood to hear other people's problems or issues, just say good morning. Okay? Don't ask them how they're doing, because they just might want to take the time to tell you. And then if you don't want to hear it, okay? If you don't want to hear it, then, and you walk away from them, that person might end up being offended and, see you as a person that doesn't have any feelings or emotions or compassion for what they may be going through in that moment or in that time. So even with something as simple as, do you say good morning or do you say how you doing? Because it really lines up with, what do I really mean what I say? And like I said, I started changing that. If I really want to know how someone is doing, I actually go up to them and talk to them and give them a few minutes and find out, how they're really doing. How are you doing? Especially if I know what their situation is. And I really want to know how they're doing. I'm waiting for that response and finding out how they're doing. That's my intent. Okay, that's what I'm saying out of my mouth. And now my action is going to follow through, because I'm going to take the time out to hear how they're doing. And that's a simple example, because we say that all the time in passing. How you doing? You don't really care. We don't really care how people are doing, in the sense that we're saying that to every single person contact with, So think about what you're saying out of your mouth. Think about, the dependability of your words, and with your actions, and with your intent. you know and like I said, that was something that I learned a while back, because I was good for saying how you doing. I would say it all the time. How you doing? How you doing? And now I'm very selective of when I'm saying how I doing, because I know how much time I have, in certain situations and things of that nature. you know um Even saying stuff like, do you have a minute? That person may only have a minute. And when they walk away from you after a minute, don't get mad because you asked them, do you have a minute? So did you really mean what you said? Did you really only want a minute of their time, or did you want 15 or 20 minutes of their time? I mean, do you really mean what you say? Because we speak in metaphors and slang all the time. But there are people in this world that really, yeah, exactly. An automatic question usually gets an automatic answer. Exactly. Exactly. Do you have 30 minutes? That's right. And I had to start setting up meetings and asking, when is a good time where we can sit down and talk about ... Because people's time is precious. People, they have full schedules. And that's what I had to really start being cognizant of that. People who are trying to really be productive in life, who are trying to grow, who are trying to do things in life, they're not just sitting around being a couch potato. They don't have time to just be talking to you, on the side somewhere for, 15, 20 minutes or an hour unexpectedly. You may have to make an appointment to sit down and have lunch with them. You know what I mean? Or have dinner with them. There's nothing wrong with planning. There's nothing wrong with planning at all. And so, do you really mean what you say? Can people depend upon you to fulfill the words that are coming out of your mouth? Can your husband depend on you? Can your wife depend on you? Can your children depend on you? Can your coworkers depend on you? Can your business associates depend on you to do what you say? That's really the question. That's the question for you. That's the question for me. So this is an opportunity for us to examine ourselves Examine our words, examine our aim, our attitudes, our intentions, and our motives. What's our aim when we say things out of our mouth? Because a lot of times we're so loose and flippant with our words. And so when people really start taking a microscope and really start looking at our lives, with a magnifying glass, and start, comparing and saying, this is a person that really I can depend upon them. They always do what I ask. They always, they always do what they say. They're always on time. They always meet their deadlines. Oh, they never lie to me. They are trustworthy. Those are the types of things that people really ought to be saying about us as people of the Most High Yah. Or are they saying, oh, they're never on time. They're always late. They never do what they say. They don't meet their deadlines. You can't trust them. Are people saying that about you? Are people saying that about me? We've got to ask ourselves that question. And self-examination is the hardest thing for people to do. People always want to point the finger at somebody else. We've all done it. I've done it. But when you point at somebody else, look at those other fingers. They automatically point back to you. So when you point, those fingers are pointing back to you. So take the time out to look at yourself. Look at your words and see whether what you're saying, whether you really mean it. And if you're saying a lot of things, a lot of words, a lot of phrases, you may have to cut down on a lot of that slang, because a lot of times we're just slanging it up. Everything out of our mouth is slang. But we are getting tripped up and caught up with our own words. And we're not meaning what we say. Okay? So take the time to think about that throughout your day-to-day, and before you say something out of your mouth that you really don't mean, just take a step back and think about it. Think before you say it. Okay? Because you really want to be known as a person that means what they say. So I just want to thank you for joining me for WOW equals Words of Wisdom number 7. And I pray that you have a positive, powerful, and productive day. Until the next time, I leave you with shalom.